Tonight, in the trial of Oscar Pistorius, 3 of his closest neighbours describe hearing a man crying the night that Reeva Steenkamp was shot.
It was basically that, no, please, please, no.
Another near neighbour demonstrated what she heard that fateful night.
Is it possible to make a sound that you would resemble it?
Good evening from the Oscar Pistorius murder trial here in Pretoria. Today we heard from the athlete's next-door neighbours, including one whose house is just 11 metres from the bathroom where Reeva Steenkamp was shot and killed. He said he was woken in the early hours of Valentine's Day last year by his wife after she heard a bang. Another neighbour demonstrated a high-pitched wail, which she claimed was a man screaming. The defence hope that will prove that any screaming or crying came from Mr. Pistorius and not the sound of Miss Steenkamp and him during a row. In another development, it's being alleged that Oscar Pistorius acted in an intimidating manner towards a friend of Reeva Steenkamp as he left court today. Expect to hear more about that later on in the programme. But back to the trial. My colleague Paul Harrison has been following today's proceedings.
In the absence of third-party witnesses to the shooting of Reeva Steenkamp last year, what, and more to the point, who neighbours heard in those few minutes in the early hours of Valentine's Day is crucial to this trial. State witnesses claim they heard the voices of both Oscar Pistorius and Reeva Steenkamp that night. But some insist they heard the cries of the athlete alone, such as Pistorius' next-door neighbour, Michael Nhlengethwa.
Oscar is the type of a person that every time when he passes my house and he sees me outside, he will not really greet me by waving his hand. He will basically stop and get out of his car to come and greet me. So we got used to that type of greeting between me and him.
And did you share any common interest?
Yeah, no, yes, we did. He loves cars, my lady, and also I've got passion for cars. So basically, whenever he buys a car, he will pass by there and stop by the driveway to show me his car.
It was on one such occasion, the Sunday before the shooting, that Oscar Pistorius was eager to introduce Reeva Steenkamp to Mr. Nhlengethwa.
So he said to me, but I would like you to meet somebody, my lady. And then that's when he called Reeva to come out. But at that time, I didn't know that is Reeva. Then he introduced her to me. One thing really that struck me about her, and I don't think I'll ever forget that moment, when she came towards me, basically I raised my hand to greet her, and she just opened her arms. She just came and hugged me. So to me, I was, I could see the person that she was at that point in time, because when a person brings you closer to her and basically to close the boundary of greeting using your hand, I mean, it meant something. Mr. Pistorius mentioned to me, because obviously when he introduced Reeva to me, he said, please meet my fiancée Reeva. That's how she introduced her to me. And I said, oh wow. And from there, basically, Reeva gave us a space between me and Oscar. She moved towards the car. And I said to Oscar, Oscar, this one is for keeps. That's what I said to him. So from that moment, then Oscar said, Mike, actually, I'm planning to move to Johannesburg in March. So actually, I was going to come officially to inform you that I will be moving out to Johannesburg. So I said to him, hey, you know what, it will be very sad to lose a neighbor like you. But anyway, if it's for her, then I think it's worth it. That's what I said to him.
The night of the shooting, Mr. Nhlengethwa was woken by his wife, who'd heard a loud bang, unsure if it was inside the house or outside.
My concern was, if it was inside the house, then I have to go and check my daughter if she's okay. So then I went out of my bedroom. I went straight to my daughter's room, and then I started checking the handle if it's still locked, because we always lock the doors when we sleep, all the bedrooms. So the door was still locked, and I could listen that she was still sleeping. And I said to my wife, no, there's nothing in the house, so it means it's outside. Then we started hearing, a man that was crying very loud. The cry that we heard that those early hours of the morning, the person was very desperate for help. So also we felt that probably he's in danger. And
Was it loud?
very loud, my lady. It was very loud.
I asked you about, you said a man's voice. I asked you if it was a low pitch or a low tone or a high tone.
No, it was a very high pitched voice.
Could you hear what the person was saying?
It was basically like no, please, please, no. So those are things that I've picked up, and also continuing to cry as well, my lady.
Having gone to see what was happening next door, Mr. Nhlengethwa told the court what he saw as he approached Oscar Pistorius' front door.
I saw Oscar. He was kneeling next to the lady who was just lying down there, and there was just blood all over. He was just crying at that point in time, and the gentleman that I saw, there's one gentleman which I saw inside Oscar's house as well, of which Oscar was also asking him to help him. And
was that our doctor? We know now that's Dr. Stitt.
That's Dr. Stitt.
The gentleman that came from that house.
Okay,
With the proud or the fortunate.
Yeah,
the
so
white guy.
basically, he was just pleading with him to help him. And I could see that obviously the situation was quite bad. And even for me, I couldn't even walk closer inside the house because I couldn't take watching what I saw at that point in time. It was quite difficult really to see it.
In cross-examination, prosecutor Gerrie Nel pushed the witness as to why he heard nothing prior to someone's cries, while those living much further away say they heard a series of loud bangs.
It was a bit surprising to know that there's somebody who's probably almost 180 meters or 170 meters away who has heard what they've heard. It's quite interesting to hear that, but I said to him, look, but at the same time again, maybe at that time we were still sleeping, we didn't hear those things. That's what I said to him.
You never heard any shots?
No, my
Loud
lady.
noises.
No, my lady.
Now, even on the accused version, on his version, he fired shots through the door and he later broke down the door with a cricket bat. You know that's his version.
I know that's a version.
Did you hear any sounds that could have emanated from him breaking down the door with a cricket bat?
I didn't hear those sounds, my lady. As I said, at the time, for myself, I had to run around the house. I'm sure if it happened when I was just checking the house, but I didn't hear that, my lady.
Mr. Nhlengethwa's wife also heard crying, a man's voice, she said, and was asked to mimic the sound she heard for the courtroom.
Help, help, help.
I had somebody saying, help, help, help. It was a very loud sound, my lady.
Was it a male? Was it a female?
It seemed like a male person's voice.
Yes.
Not long after that help, help noise, I then heard the sound of a male person's crying. The sound of a person who felt very hurt, my lady, and somebody who needed urgent help.
Is it possible to make a sound that you would resemble it?
But in the voice of a man.
And she
And
says,
it was
my lady,
vibrant-like.
and she says that voice was vibrating, and it was in a male voice, a high-pitched voice.
Another short cross-examination by Gerrie Nel meant the defence wasn't ready to call its next witness. They hadn't arrived at court. It meant a delay, followed by an apology, coupled with a little finger-pointing.
But there's a second problem to it that I must address in advance, because understanding now better the cross-examination of the previous two witnesses, that I can anticipate won't take that long. So again, the same problem will arise. But I will put on record that we well within the time frame, and if I work it out, the time frame, and try and anticipate cross-examination at times, that I even believe that we may end the defence case by Tuesday next week.
You're
So-
that confident?
Yeah, so I'm really sorry about the delay again that I can anticipate it's going to be caused because the 3 witnesses line that we tried to work out,
Yes.
they all have children and we could not just bring witnesses left, right and centre. And I incorrectly believed that the 3 witnesses would take the day. Clearly did not, and that's why I arranged for a certain time for the one to be picked up, but there's only 1 witness remaining for the day, and that's the neighbour, one of the neighbours on the other side of the house.
Yes. I just hope you're quite correct when you say by next week, Tuesday, you're probably
My
going
lady,
to...
of course I can't give a guarantee, but that's my...
I know.
I've been so wrong in my estimation
Yes.
the first 2 days, but I think it's fairly accurate.
Yes.
I think it's fairly accurate.
Okay.
We're well within the time frames.
Okay. I hope so, because
Yes,
I've got other duties waiting for
I
me.
know that, my lady.
Yes.
That's why I put it on record now. Thank you, madam.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Nel, anything to say?
The court, lady, nobody ever blamed you for not asking enough questions. That this will be a first. But my lady, I have no objection. I understand the predicament, Mr. Wilson.
So, court will adjourn.
Coming up, more dramatic screams in court before proceedings were brought to a rather abrupt end. Welcome back. Another of Oscar Pistorius' next-door neighbours was called by the defence to give her evidence. She too loudly demonstrated the screams and cries that she heard that night.
In the early hours, on the 14th of February, I heard a man crying. And to me, the cry, my lady, it was a cry of pain. Immediately, I woke my husband up. I asked him, "Did you hear?" And my lady, my husband said, "Yes, I heard, but I thought I was dreaming." Then I said to my husband, "The crying is real." And I started panicking. I remember my lady saying to my husband, the crying, the voice, it could be that maybe one of the security guard has been shot. The dogs were barking as well by then, and I was panicking. We were all frightened. The crying was very loud and very close. I even remember, I even thought it could be inside the house. It was very loud and very, very close.
And the pitch of the crying?
It was very loud. Thereafter, my lady, we were like sitting on the bed.
Before we get there, when I consulted with you, I asked you if you can just make resemble that noise what you heard.
The crying was like,
and was it short or continuing?
the crying was continuous. We were wondering what could have happened. I even remember saying to my husband, what if it was inside the house? We had so many thoughts, wondering what could have happened, my lady. We couldn't move from the bed. I remember I was just in a sitting position. We couldn't switch on the light. We were just panicking, panicking.
You see there's a number 285.
Yes, 285, I can see it.
And in relation to that number 285, where's your bedroom? To make it easy, it's facing the number 285.
My lady, I only heard a man crying very loud.
If there was at that same time, during that same time, a female screaming, would you have heard it?
My lady, if I could have heard a female also screaming, I think I could have reflected it on my statement. I only heard a man crying.
Have you been following this matter in the media?
Yes, I was watching, my lady.
So you watched it on TV as we ran the matter?
I remember we were subpoenaed to come to court. And then we didn't hear anything afterwards. Then I SMS'd him to say, am I appearing on the witness list? And if so, when am I going to be called to testify? And then if I remember, he replied by SMS to say, the court doesn't intend to call you, my lady. Then I was free then to watch the television.
And please, madam, I'm not blaming you for it. I just want to know. You've been following it. No, I'm not blaming you at all. Please relax.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. But you've been watching it.
Yes, I've been watching.
And you know all these issues that came out in court about gunshots and so forth.
Yes, I can't say I know everything. Yes, but I've been following.
But you haven't heard gunshots.
I didn't hear gunshots, my lady.
Lady, I indicated the difficulty, but also the time frames to you, so my apologies again. Yes. I would ask Mr. Nel to maybe ask more questions on Thursday to save me this embarrassment, and he assured me that he would do so. But the witnesses are ready for Thursday. Again, I can only estimate the duration.
Maybe you should have assisted him with a few questions.
I will do so, my lady.
Well, that brought today's proceedings to a rather abrupt end, although the defence indicated that they're not only on schedule, but perhaps ahead of it, and they expect to wrap up their case by Tuesday next week. Well, joining me to discuss what happened today is Annika Larsson, a South African journalist who works for ENCA, an independent television channel, and Lobo das Neves, who is an international law enforcement expert. Thank you both for joining. Annika, first of all, what did you make of the witnesses today?
I think they were certainly credible in that they're professionals. They were highly qualified people and, well-spoken. You'd call them respected members of the community, if you'd like. But there was certainly no big surprises or sort of drama factor today. I think that the purpose they served were first as character witnesses, and secondly, and perhaps at a far more reduced level, as there to muddy the state's case, just to muddy the waters.
Yes, and who actually heard this what? Stage, right?
Exactly. If direct next-door neighbours didn't hear screaming or a row between a couple and didn't hear gunshots, then how could people, 70 metres down the road have heard exactly the same thing, which we can discuss. But I think that was the main purpose, really, was muddying the waters and as the character witnesses.
Both sets of neighbours went out of the way to say how friendly Oscar Pistorius was, how he went to both their homes to try and welcome them when they came to the estate. What did you make of their evidence, Logan?
Well, I tried to decide whether this was actually witnesses or character witnesses busy testifying. I think there's a big emphasis by the defence to put to create an atmosphere of who Oscar Pistorius really is, and that he's a nice person, and that he was really hurt by what he did, etc., etc. I don't think the last witnesses really contributed much towards anybody's case.
Well, I thought they, first of all, and I'm sure the defence will argue this, that they argued fairly successfully that they did not hear a woman screaming or a row.
Exactly. I mean, there was no mention of that at all. In fact, they were adamant that what they heard was a very high-pitched man screaming, and they were very adamant about that and clear about it. You could see they'd spent some time going over their statements, and Gerrie Nel in cross-examination did ask them, you didn't hear a woman? And they said, no, it was a man's voice.
We don't seem to have a huge number of expert witnesses.
We all expected the ballistics expert, Mr. Volmerans, to testify yesterday, and when he didn't appear, we definitely were certain that he was going to appear today, and, well, the rest is history. I can only speculate why he's not in court.
What is your speculation, Lobo?
Well, he has a couple of different difficult questions to answer. And the thing about an expert is that an expert should, under all circumstances, give evidence about his findings and not to suit the version of his client. And once it seems that an expert was maybe stepping over the line between objectivity and the client's story, that person loses credibility and may not be used again. So an expert, and I would say...
But at the moment, Tom Wolmerans can't be accused of that because we haven't heard from him.
We haven't heard of him, but we haven't heard from him yet, but he still has difficult questions to answer. And one has to be careful what you say in the box, especially in the circumstances like these where it's viewed internationally. You have to be very careful. I always say when I'm called into a court, I'm not 99% sure of my case, I'm 100% sure of my case.
What about the defence not having their witnesses ready? Should they be blamed for that? Should they be criticised for that?
I think they should be criticised for that. They had more than ample time to line up the witnesses. The state had their witnesses already, and I'm quite sure that if the state didn't bring a witness in time, they would have been criticised very, very, very directly and immediately. So I can't understand why their witnesses aren't all waiting outside court.
Well, thank you very much, Lobodas Neves and Annika Larsson, for joining us. There was much controversy and debate over whether Oscar Pistorius had spoken to some of Reeva Steenkamp's friends after the court had adjourned today, and exactly what he'd said if he indeed had spoken to them. This statement was issued by the Myers family lawyer. He said, "My client Kim Myers was approached by Oscar Pistorius in court today and in a very sinister tone was asked, 'How can you sleep at night?' My client views this unwelcome approach as extremely disturbing, and I've been in communication with the national prosecuting authorities as well as the investigating officer. All other parties have been informed." Well, we approached the national prosecuting authority and they said their hands were tied and they're told the lawyer in Levitt that they wouldn't be taking it any further unless the Myers family chose to take it further. The Myers family, as you'll remember, are very close friends of Reeva Steenkamp. In fact, that was the house where she had been living for some time. I, along with a number of other reporters, approached Oscar Pistorius about it to see what he had to say about it, and the athlete flatly denied talking at all to any member of the Myers family for what he described as weeks. He said that he often passed them on his way in and out of the courtroom, and he felt that they were avoiding eye contact with him. So a complete denial from Oscar Pistorius. Well, there's no court tomorrow because of the South African general election, but please do join us again on Thursday for the rolling coverage of the Oscar Pistorius murder trial, and of course our catch-up programme every night at 9:30. Thanks for watching.